G'day folks, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be quite a long video, probably around that just under the 20-minute mark. But it's basically a way to go for beach fishing. So everything you all need to know to go beach fishing, from gear selection before you go, the right tides and times, the apps I use, when you get there, how to collect the bait, whether it be your pippies or your worms. That's if you're not buying, obviously. And then how to select the area to fish, how to pick a gutter, what to look for when finding a gutter, and then we'll catch a few fish at the end. Obviously I know what's coming up, that's why I can say we actually do catch a few fish at the end. Catching the fish at the end though is just proof in the pudding. You don't really need to watch that. This is more a tutorial on the process to be a better fisherman on the beach. That's what this video is about. This time. Righto, so let's get into it. What we do before we actually leave the house to go fishing. First thing I do is look at my apps. I want a wind direction and I want a wind strength, and I also would like tide times. So to do that I use Wiley Weather. Wiley Weather, while it's not 100% accurate for the weather, it's as good as any other app that you're going to find. I like Wiley Weather. Once I've got a tide time and a wind direction, I'll pick for the weekend that I've got off, obviously, or the couple of days that I've got off. I'll pick a species based on the tide times and wind direction. I don't pick the species first, I pick the species after that. Now the species will be wind direction, tide times are an important part, but also time of year. So 90% of the fishers go down to the beach, throw a line in, and just hope they catch a fish. You will be more productive if you pick a species and target that species, and all the other species you'll catch as bycatch. So target a species based on the time of year and what's more proficient or more volume for that particular time of year. So Wiley Weather, that'll show you your tide times, your wind direction, and help you with where you want to go to fish. An app that you won't always use but is helpful is Navionics. It'll also help you find those little deeper reefy spots that are in close to the beach at different parts or different areas that you might be fishing. For example, when I fish the beach or the foreshore on the peninsula here at Redcliffe, there's a lot of holes really close to the shoreline that I know I can reach. So I'll fish those areas if I'm fishing a deep water species, and if I don't need a deep water species, if it's a different time of year, say for example the middle of winter and I'm chasing good quality brim, I want a really high tide, so the moon phase is important. Moon phase will give me the higher tide, so 3 or 4 days either side of a full moon or a no moon, and I'll fish down at Woody Point on the flats where I know there's a lot of food and the big fish come in on those few days every 2 weeks, no moon, full moon, and feed up in the shallows. So Navionics will help you with those locations once you get used to Navionics. Once I've had a look at my apps and I've made a selection in relation to where I'm going, then the next step is gear. See there's right up this end, the little ones. These are a tiny true turn. That's a number 6 true turn. Then it goes up. So I'll use full whiting. I'll use between this number 6 true turn. Normally I'll have a double hook rig and I'll have a hook just above that plastic. Quite often I go the smaller hook just above the plastic, and that'll catch absolutely everything. And then I'll normally have a bigger hook for whiting on the end. So these are just that cheap old mustard long shanks. That there's a size 2. And that'll be my double hook rig. Just an 8-pound. This one's Stealth FC. What I'm making up here is the trace. Swivel up this end. Above the swivel, as you can see, just the bead and the sand sinker, or the surf sinker, which is a little bit flatter. Now for a double hook rig, I'll put my small hook on first. So a bit of plastic, that'll be the shortest I ever have it, maybe a little bit longer than on occasion. This plastic separates the 2 hooks. So you got your swivel, small hook, plastic, and then your whiting hook down the bottom. This can be anything size 2 up to size 4 mustard long shank. So the business end, little hook, when I say little hook, that's a size 6 true turn in blue, separated by a piece of plastic. That's probably around 10 centimeters long. I like it probably up to 15 centimeters long. And the bottom's a size 2 long shank bronze mustard. I'll load them up with bait, whether they be pippies or worms. So the reels I'm using on the beach are the LVs. They're both 55As. One was made for me, the furthest from the camera here. The line I'm using on it's moi moi. The blue line on the reel furthest is a 17 or 18 pound moi moi. And the line on the one closest to me, that's on the whiting rod, that's a 6 pound moi moi. The rods I'm using in the surf are 11.5 foot rods made by Popey, John Pope down J Street, Scarborough. The rod there on the right, the red one, it's a whiting rod. The one on the right's just a little bit stronger. It's a composite rod. It's probably equivalent to a 5-wrap rod, and it's an everything rod. Whiting, tailor, dart, brim, whatever you want to catch on that rod. You see all these little lumps here? Every one of them has a little pippy in them. So we just get the pippies out rather than bend over for every one. Dig a few out, put them all together. You only need to bend over once. So I'll collect about 20 pippies. That'll do me for the session this afternoon. And if I run out, I'll get a few more. So that's what you're looking for, those little bumps just under the surface. 2 in that one.
Today, how to catch beach worms. One thing you will need is a stink bag, or a burley as we call it, a few fish heads, some gut, something that's nice, oily, smelly. Doesn't have to necessarily stink, can be just fresh, straight out of the fish shop. It works just the same. Bit of rope and a loop around your hand so you don't lose it. The other important thing you'll need is a pippy or a hand bait. So when the worm comes up, you put the pippy down for the worm to bite onto. They'll come up and get a hold of that. And then your technique from there is simply come in either side with your fingers, slowly move your fingers in until you can feel the legs of the worm. You'll feel his legs actually tickle your fingers. And what he'll try and do is he'll try and pull that pippy down into the sand. Well, when he's trying to pull it down is the wrong time to try and grab. Don't panic, because he'll go down so far and realise, I'm not doing any good at this. I'll come back up and I'll try and pull it down again. Well, as he's coming up, that is the time to grab that worm, because all his legs are pushing down. So as you grab like that, he'll actually assist you in pulling him out of the sand. Pick yourself a nice, gentle, sloping section of beach. So that way, as the water recedes like it is now, it gives you a good long vision. We'll just walk down and meet the water here. And you just swing the burley bag back and forth like that. Spread that smell around. Now as that recedes back with the water, the worms smell it straight away. Look at this, right at my feet, straight away, a nice big one. Nice big goldie head. Okay, now here we go. We just pop the pippy down, let him get his little pincers into that. We're waiting for that upward movement, like that, and out he comes. Now that's quite a nice little slide, and we'll coil him up a bit. Best time to be down here is from the half tide out through to the bottom of the tide, and then the first bit of the make. And then that's a nice worm. Okay, fingers in, slowly creep your fingers in until you can feel the legs of the worm, and you'll feel it's just down, just pulling down. Okay, up he comes, and out he comes.
So let me just begin with why you want to pick the right spots to fish. You'll absolutely improve your chances of fishing if you select a gutter. Not just any gutter, it needs to be a gutter that's within casting range. The best time to do this is at low tide. You find that right gutter, it's got a drain in it, or it's got a couple of drains in it, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of structure where there's a lot of food being generated, and you're more likely to increase your chances of catching a fish. So many people go fishing these days, just find a nice spot, park their car, throw the rod in and hope for the best. Well, they're the 90% of the fishermen that, if they're lucky, go home with one or two. It's the 10% of fishermen that pay a little bit of attention to where it is they need to fish, and where the fish are most likely to hold up looking for food are the ones that are going to catch the majority of the fish. So as you're driving along the beach, the view you'll have will be mostly of the cresting waves. As you're driving along, you'll see the cresting waves coming up to the beach, probably only 10 meters away from where you're actually driving. Eventually you'll get to see the cresting waves crest and then break and then move into a dark blue area before you get to a new crest onto a beach, and that's what you're looking for. That's most likely where you're going to find your gutter. So at eye level you'll see the gutter as a dark blue area in between two sets of cresting waves, one near your feet and one a little bit further out the outer bank. In this clip here, if we watch it just for a 30-second period or so, you'll see the cresting waves over the outer bank, you'll see them disappear, and then you'll see them roll again when they get closer to the shore. And that's what it is you're looking for as you're driving down the beach. The three main elements to look for when you're looking for a good gutter is a good outer sandbar, one that you can most likely cast to and hit your bait on top of it. You want it to be close enough so that you can bring your bait back over the ledge and actually put the bait where the fish are most likely going to be feeding. It'll have a good deep gutter or trough. Some people call them gutters, others troughs. Well, that trough, the deeper it is, the better it is. And to top it off, if it's got a really good drain or cutting, that makes it even more attractive to me, because then you've got the points to fish as well. So let's talk more about that. Holding points for fish. You can see in this clip you've got the gutter, the drain, the outer sandbank and the wash at your feet. There's plenty of points here where you can prospect for fish, and depending on the fish that you're targeting as to which ones are more likely to hold that particular breed of fish. Where I fish in southeast Queensland, we fish for bream, whiting, dart, and at night time you'll get tailor and dew. Firstly, the 2 points. These 2 points you'll get maximum wash for your buck. You get all the wash that comes off of those points, pushes any food that it might have stirred up in that sandbank off that ledge. And those 2 points are definitely 2 points that I'd try first up. In between those 2 points you'll see the drain. That drain there is generally the deepest part of this whole system. That drain is often confused with a hole, and sometimes is a hole. And that's also where the rips occur. When you hear somebody being washed out through a rip, it's generally that type of structure that they're being washed through. That drain is basically the highway in and out for all fish into this gutter. So they'll use that, and that's a very good place to prospect for your bigger fish, the predators, and also you'll catch all the smaller fish because they have to come in and out from that drain. So another great place to prospect. And then you've actually got the gutter itself, and right across that gutter you'll have food being washed off of that outer sandbank into that gutter, and the fish hold there waiting for that food to come over the edge. So that whole area is good prospecting. The 2 points and the drain are definitely my preferred, and then you've got the gutter. The depth through this gutter at low tide, you'll see where number 1 is. That number 1 is the outer bank, and that number 1 is between 1 foot and 1.5 foot deep when the waves recede. As it crests and comes over the the bank and washes and disturbs the sand. That's what pushes all the bait. That can be up to about 2 foot, 2.5 foot in this particular breeze today. Obviously, if you've got an onshore breeze and it's blowing, a good 20 knots, those waves will be much bigger. There'll be a lot more disturbance. There'll be a lot more food washed in, a lot better prospecting, and you'll get a lot more food in that gutter. Today, very light winds, very small waves. That's what we've got, approximately about 1 foot deep. The actual cutting through there, the highway for the fish, that's the deepest section, as I said, and that section there is between 4 foot and 5 foot deep at low tide. The actual gutter itself ranges between 3 and 6 foot, just depending on where you're standing in that gutter. The deeper the better when it comes to fishing, in my opinion, for gutters. So if you can find a nice deep gutter, your chances increase dramatically. So in summing up, find a close gutter that you can cast to. You want to be able to reach it at high tide. So go prospecting at low tide, find a good gutter, make sure it's not going to be too far away for you at high tide, and stick with it. The deeper the gutter, the better it is. As you drive up, you'll see 4, 5, 6 gutters. Look for a gutter with as many cuttings as possible and as deep as possible. Don't forget that the drains or the cuts are the best areas to target. So fish those drains and you'll find your chances increase dramatically. A nice gentle cast just into the gutter here that's in front of us. So I don't have to cast very far at all. The reason I stopped here, I've got a very shallow bank about 30 metres to my right, and the waves are breaking over that, churning up a lot of the bait food, pushing it into this tight little gutter. I'm hoping to find a fish or two. I'll fish this gutter probably for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If I have no joy, I move to the next one. Thread this worm all the way up the hook onto the line, leave a little loop down the bottom, make it look even bigger, and a small tag end. This is just a cured frozen worm from the bait shop there at Rainbow, Gardener's Fisheries I think it's called. So that's my worm bait there. You can see quite a substantial bit of worm. Up over the hook onto the line, a little bit of tag at the bottom, hook's exposed in the middle with a few curls in the middle. Oh yes, better fish! Right at the deck. Very nice. I don't think it's a whiting. I think it's going too hard for a whiting. I'm going to call either a big dart or a tarwine. Wait for this wave. There you go, a tarwine. Not a bad tarwine either. That's another good fish. In our wave. Hoping for a whiting, but thinking another tarwine. Oh no, dart. Yeah, that's a decent dart. Oh, mixed bag today.